back to our new podcast.
Yeah,
Today
hi
we're
there.
going to talk about animal welfare,
Correct.
and we have a special guest today, Kylie. Could you explain a little bit, introduce yourself a little bit?
Well, my name is Kylie Boots. I work currently in a lab at a hospital. I do heart research, but in the past I had really a passion for animals. So I worked at an animal shelter. I take care of pets in the neighborhood when people go on vacation. And I saved also animals besides that work, like hedgehogs and pigeons, and I've done everything. I lived in Australia for half a year, where I worked at a wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah.
And I think that sums it up a little bit.
You already did a lot of stuff. So you said you have volunteered at animal shelter. Of course, we are talking about plastics and about solutions for plastics. Did you experience any trouble, or maybe your colleagues, with animals in need that had something to do with, for example, plastic trash?
I personally worked at the dog department, but there were also more common departments which were from a lot of animals. And I heard stories about a swan that had his head stuck in those like the plastic bags that are around cans. But besides that, dogs, they were mostly just tied to trees.
Yeah.
Also, one dog that had a plastic, like a rope, and he had his head completely scarred because of it, because he tried to get loose. And it was really sad, and he was really emotionally damaged because of that. But besides that, I haven't personally discovered a lot with plastics.
Do you know a little bit about the procedure, like what happens when they find an animal with plastics? Can they easily remove it, or how do they...
They have their own vet.
Yeah.
So the vet tries to treat the animals.
Yeah.
If it's really bad, they have to put them down. But that's like the last resort. They don't do that easily. So they really try to do anything. That's why donations are very important for it. And I think they just try to make it most easy for the animal at that moment.
When I already think about it, I really don't like it. Yeah, for you guys, you really love scuba diving.
Correct.
So I think you already have seen some
experience
stuff
it below
on
the
water,
surface. Yeah, correct. And I think I do not say that it's not bad on the surface, but I think it's even worse below the surface due to the fact that all the plastics ends up in microplastics. And small fishes and plankton, for example, they mistake them for food. So it even comes in our own food chain. And I think that's one of the biggest things that people do not realize. That we weekly eat simply one credit card on plastics. And nobody realizes that that's coming out of our water, our tap water, and our fishes.
And another thing is as well, like above the surface, on the land and everything, you can see it. But what's down below the surface, you have to be scuba diving basically to see it. And that's where it goes wrong, that people don't realize how much plastic litter actually is down below there. It's a huge amount. I mean,
you simply cannot see the consequences. So
that's it.
Yeah,
so then it's not there.
Maybe then the thing also is that they do not realize how many animals are getting hurt or damaged trapped because of the plastic that's floating around.
Correct.
And that's even like on the mainland as well. Like
I think
Kylie
also
sees
birds,
it in an animal shelter, for example.
Yeah.
But the regular person who doesn't work in an animal shelter, they don't see it or barely see it. And I think that's a point of education as well, to make people realize how much it actually happens, and that maybe hopefully makes them think twice as well before disposing a plastic bag or before disposing other plastic things that could harm animals.
I want to add to that. For example, in the wastewater treatment plant, microplastics end up there through the sewage water and everything. And a waste product of the wastewater treatment plant is sludge, and it's like big mud with bacteria, but also the microplastics end up in it. And the sludge goes to farmers. They use it on the land, they use it for vegetables, fruits, but also animals live on the land.
Yeah.
And so that's another spreader that a lot of people are not aware about.
And then finally it ends up again in the food chain.
Exactly.
I don't know what to say about that, because it sounds...
And that's actually true. I mean, you have like the things that people see, for example, like a plastic bag around an animal. But what Kylie is explaining, that's something that the mass population is not even aware of that. Even in those circumstances and in those manners, it eventually ends up on the landfill, and so in the food chain as well. Even in those manners.
Yeah, and of course, yeah, you're probably very aware of these microplastics and that stuff in general. Do you think that in your private life you're more aware about the packaging that you use or how you dispose trash?
Yeah, for example, when I use face scrubs, for example, you have those little like sandy things in it. Yeah, I'm almost aware that I don't use plastic ones because some of them use plastic little beads in it. I always am aware that I don't use those. I use the natural ones.
Okay, good to know because I didn't know that. So they use like plastic?
Yeah, if you have like the scrubs.
Yeah.
I know one from Garnier has like the blue ones.
Yeah.
And they use plastic for it. It's not natural.
Oh, because you always see on the packaging like, yes, they use salt and sugar and I don't know what kind
exactly.
of things.
Those are good, but some use actual plastics.
Okay. Ew.
Good to be aware of.
Good to be aware of, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's all going down in the drain, of course, and then it's going,
It's not maybe plastic waste, but for example, you have those wet toilet paper tissues, also face tissues. Never ever flush them because they stay in the water for at least 7 to 10 years.
Oh my god, that's really long.
Yeah.
That's a really long time, yeah.
I think people in general aren't really aware in how long it takes before something
biodegrades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely true, and definitely with paper, for example.
Correct.
People think that it just gets composed and that it disappears, but it's far from the truth actually, and it stays in our climate a lot longer than people realize.
Yeah. Do you guys have maybe any tips or ideas like for entrepreneurs and how they can deal with this issue with like plastic everywhere? And
I think again it's partially yes, partially is education. Again, from government bodies who need to educate the people how to properly dispose things and what are the consequences of disposing it in the wrong way. For example, like Kylie says, that it stays into our climate and system for 7 up to 10 years. Honestly, I don't think 95% of the people aren't realizing it. So I definitely again think it's a part of education to make people aware of what the real consequences are of disposing those
I think too, it's not like the back door, it's like the front door. Be aware of where you source from and what am I using to distribute this product. And then it makes it easier for parties such as composting facilities to compost, separate, and recycle materials. But as long as the entrepreneur who buys the materials does not know what he buys, he cannot avoid, prevent, or decline anything he gets on the table or get offered.
True.
And what do you think that the impact is for like the animals with all these plastics? I mean, now we have the new law amendments and we have to, like the single-use plastics are banned. Do you think that's enough to make even for environment and for like the animals make it a little bit better?
No, I don't think it's enough very long ago. I think it's an improvement. For example, the cotton swabs, they were one of the most common things to see.
Correct.
Also in the wastewater, but also in the ocean. I've seen them. So I think it's already a start, but I think there is a lot more that needs to be
achieved.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing for the oceans are packaging. Change packaging, ban the plastics there. Because like the big plastics, they get like filtered out of the wastewater, but they don't get filtered out in the ocean.
That's definitely true. That's what we always say as well. It's a good start, but there's still a long road ahead of us.
Very long road.
Yeah. And you said you also did something like with hedgehogs and...
We had a hedgehog stuck in the garage at home, and and I tried to catch him, didn't work. I had a pet carrier, so I kind of like lured it in with cat food because I was currently watching a cat at that moment. So I lured it with cat food, and then I literally ran into the garage when I heard like nibbling. So I closed the door, put it outside, and he walked away. And also a pigeon that was hurt, he was sitting at our front door. So I looked up the ring around his foot, around his like ankle, and I called the owner, and he lived like 150 kilometers away. And he said, okay, if you cannot catch it, I'm not picking it up. So I lured him again with rice. That's
Mhm.
good for pigeons in the water, and a laundry basket and a rope.
Invented.
DIY.
Definitely.
Exactly. And I caught it, and the owner came, and I
Yeah.
still have contact with the owner 2 years later.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah,
funny.
I'm learning about the kids
Yeah.
that are like champions, so that's really funny. And last year I saved a mama duck with 11 ducklings
Oh,
Oh.
from my
That's so
neighbor.
cute.
So
Yeah.
yeah, in the neighbor I'm like known as the crazy
the animal
animal
lady.
lady.
Yeah, but with the ducks, my aunt, she also had like a mama duck with a lot of babies, and then they were also staying in her garden. And then
Yeah.
when they were like too big, she called animal welfare, and then they helped her escort like the ducks to the pond somewhere
Yeah,
in nature. Yeah,
that's what I did as well. Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, there was a garden with like a
Mhm.
wall around it, so they couldn't
They couldn't leave.
get out at all.
Yeah,
So we called indeed on animal welfare, and then we walked them to the water,
Mhm.
which was 2 kilometers.
yeah,
And then with Mama Duck and the ducklings in the little basket.
yeah. Oh.
And the whole neighborhood was watching us. It was really cute. Yeah.
But yeah, it's good to always take
Yeah.
care of the ones that need some extra help, of course.
Correct.
Definitely.
Yes, guys. What do you have any other things that you want to discuss?
I
or
did
questions for her, maybe?
No, but
Uh,
I would like to add as well. I experienced something familiar or similar in in Australia. Of course, while diving, I'm always cleaning up the litter that I do see on the bottom and in the reefs. But in Australia and the how is it called again? Fraser Island. We saved a turtle as well. He was
Yeah.
literally trapped in like the ropes as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the things that we did in Australia as well to save that little turtle, and that always makes a big impact because you see the impact we humans do have on animals, and
Yeah.
not directly but indirectly. We use it as fishing nets, and finally it ends up in the sea,
Yeah.
and lastly it ends up around the throat in a throat or around the neck of a turtle. Yeah, and that really does pain like
Yeah, it hurts.
it hurts like to see what we do as human being with our planet.
And that's the thing, like we dispose it and then for us it's gone.
Yeah, that's
Not
the thing.
thinking about the consequence, like it doesn't mean that when you dispose it
Yeah.
that it's gone. No, it's still gonna be there in the oceans, and it's gonna take hundreds of years if it's ever gonna compose
Maybe
fully.
thousands of
Maybe
years.
thousands of years if it's ever gonna decompose fully.
Correct.
And that's something that at least with our mindset here we simply can't understand.
Yeah.
But that's why it's good that we are finally starting to simply prohibit these things, so we don't even give the people a chance to choose.
Yeah, and I think that if you're not daily busy with these kinds of topics or situations, I don't know if you can say it in English, but in Dutch, like too far from your bed.
Yeah.
So then people are like, oh, I don't know, I don't
Yeah, but-
feel responsible for this, or
But that's
doesn't
simply
impact me.
how people mentally work. Like if it does not influence me directly, or it's not my contact, or
Yeah.
not my associate,
Yeah.
I do not bother, and that's the thing that needs to change.
And it's really bad, but to be honest, I had kind of like a similar experience as well when I went diving the first time with Bas, because Bas is already diving a long time.
Quite a while,
Yeah, and when I went diving the first time, obviously you hear like there's a lot of plastic litter in the oceans, animals are getting stuck in it, etc. But if you don't see it with your own eyes, you don't really realize it.
Yeah.
But then the first time that we went diving, and I literally saw all the plastics over there, and in between them, the maritime life and the animals. That's really like when you see it with your own proper eyes. That's when you start to realize, oh, like this is a big problem, and we
Yeah.
need to find solutions for this. But you were right, definitely, that if it's not directly in your surroundings and you don't see it directly with your own eyes, other people can say what they want, but it doesn't sink in the way it does when you see it yourself.
Yeah, and I think the thing with that is because, of course, not everybody's able to see it with their own eyes. They shouldn't
Correct.
have to see it with their own eyes because it's a
Correct.
bad thing in general. But I don't know if you guys see these things on TV, also with animal welfare, like ads, and then they try to raise money or try to make people aware of the stuff. But at least for me, like with my psychology background, we learned at school that a lot of times when companies do these kinds of TV commercials, people feel uncomfortable, and then instead of trying to do something about it or face it, they will just ignore it. So do you guys have maybe any ideas or like what we can do to make people aware without making them feeling uncomfortable or thinking that, oh, this is not something for me, I don't want to deal with it?
Really difficult question, because that's exactly the thing.
Because they try, but it's not working, I think, or at least not enough.
Yeah, my experience is when I studied at Eindhoven, always at the train station are people trying to raise money for basically anything. And once the animal shelter where I volunteered at was 2 years later, I think, they approached me for money. And I asked them, I was like, have you ever even walked inside? Or I know it's not your job. I was like, have you anytime just walked inside? They were like, no. I was like, do you have any idea what's going on there? They were like, no. I'm like, do you know where you're raising money for? Exactly. No. And I was like, that's the problem. You're not going to raise any money if you don't have any idea. I think the people that raise money indeed make people uncomfortable, but I think if they have more knowledge and actual experience,
and heart for it.
Because because I was also in Eindhoven at Fontes, and indeed every time when you go home with a train, there are people following you for raising money. And the thing is that I volunteered a long time at Amnesty International, and they were also there a lot. I think they hired a company to raise money. And then they kept following me like, yes, do you want to give money? I'm like, yeah, but I'm already volunteering actively for them. So, yeah, but don't you still want to give money? And then it's so rude that I even called them, like the line, I said, I really don't appreciate this because I'm already actively helping. And then you're still pushing me to give you money.
It's all about the approach. Like I think if there is someone who really has heart for it and can explain, like you say, who can explain you why you are doing exactly why they are doing something, why they are there, and what you are donating for, basically, and just explain it. I think that would already help a lot for the people to get a better understanding.
It really does help, because I was always at festivals and then we were raising signatures, so not raising money but just signatures for specific cases. And for some people they didn't care, they were just signing or they were like, no thank you. And other people were really questioning me like, do you know what you're talking about? And then in the beginning they were very skeptical, but once they found out that you really know the topic and know what's going on and that you are really fighting for the cause, then they were like, okay, you know what you're talking about, I agree with you, I will give you my signature. But indeed, I think that hiring companies to raise money, okay, it's efficient, but it can also backfire. That people are not happy that they have to raise money and then they don't even know what they're talking about.
That's it, and that's not the way it should be, definitely.
But it's for all kinds of organizations, not only for welfare, animal welfare or...
True. Whatever you're raising money for, you need to be aware of what you are actually raising money for, to be able to explain it to the people and make them feel good about what they are actually donating for as well.
Yeah, it's a good thing to think about at home, like what you can do to make people aware without troubling them or making them
annoying them.
Or annoying them.
Yeah, but I think that like what we just talked about is I think that would be a really efficient manner, to be honest. Just instead of like having people who are more about raising the money than actually the cause, to use people who are actually standing behind the cause and really have heart for it. So if you can explain what you are raising the money for, I think that would already help a lot towards the people, the consumers, to donate the money, instead of just having it all be about the money instead of the cause.
I think, for example, the animal shelter should also be more open. For example, when I was volunteering there, they need a lawnmower. It broke, for example. Maybe it's not enough time to fully do it for a commercial whatsoever, but just be open. Say, once a year we buy a lawnmower, costs like this. Monthly cost for food, for dogs, for cats, whatsoever, costs this. And just say what you're short, and I think that also motivates people.
To say that, like, being more transparent.
Because it's really close. If you drive past it, for example, in Born, it's like one big bunker. It's like quite close, and everyone's driving past it. No one stops by. And I think if they would be more open, that would be quite convenient. And also to let people know, like, voluntary work is not a full-time job. You can go once a week, for example, and walk the dogs only. You don't need to clean kennels for example. There was always a grandpa, and he came with his grandkids every Friday afternoon, and he was walking the dogs. You have like levels of dogs. You have like the easy ones, but you also have the aggressive,
rough ones.
the aggressive ones. And you always had the easy dogs, and you teach the kids about like volunteering, and I think that was really nice. And I think that's also a lesson for people. You don't have to like work in the ambulance or whatsoever to help people.
Yeah.
Correct. I fully agree.
True.
Even the small things help. Like even though it's once a month or half a day, I think it already helps a lot.
A small change of many has a bigger impact than
One person
one
doing
big
a lot.
change of one. Yeah, exactly. One company or one person.
Yeah, guys, thank you. I think we
Thanks a
discussed
lot.
a lot of stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot, Andy, for
It
being
was very
here. It
nice
was really
having you having
informative.
here.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you have so many different topics that you know about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's for me always interesting to learn new things. So
Yeah.
and hear about new stuff. So yeah, thank you guys. Thank you
Great.
everyone.
Thanks a lot.
See you soon again.
Yes. Bye bye.